Okay. Yeah, 30 minutes. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Stephanie?
I am wonderful, darling. How are you?
Doing well also.
Wonderful. Um, well, I'm glad to have you on the show today. Um, I'm glad the fact that you will be part of history. We can't talk much about things right now, but we're working on something that is going to be very important for our community in the future,
Okay.
coming up or very, very soon. And I am sort of like the host, sort of. I'll just say that for now. I'm just sort of the person that'll be doing the talking. Um, so today I want to have you on the show. We're not filming. Well, we are filming because we want this as an outtake. Okay. So if you feel uncomfortable about any of the questions that I ask you today, you can just skip.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I am going to be quite direct with quite a few questions that I think are relevant and very important to our audience and our community and our allies. And I want your point of view on a few of those things that we see trending online. She wrote a list out of what she wanted me to ask. So I'm going to try to ask them in the way we understand, the way we can understand them. Now, I'm going to first say, are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Um, okay. So we are going to start, and I'm going to do an introduction, and then we will start. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
We're going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show. And thank you guys so much for supporting Pronoun TV and our adventures here. Today on the show, we have Mr. Continental 2024 Noels Ark. Now, he's from Washington, D.C., and he's a dancer and an aerialist. At first, I couldn't hardly pronounce that. I finally got that out. And he's going to explain his journey to Continental for us today. And as a newcomer and winning on his first try, he's going to explain us his secret to how he prepared his package and won the competition. He is a graduate of Chapman University. He's from Washington, D.C. He now resides in Los Angeles. So today we are so glad to have you on the show, Noels Ark, Mr. Continental 24. I'm Stephanie Stevens. Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you too, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, it's actually pronounced like Christmas, like Noel. So it's like a Noel's Ark. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to try. She's trying to explain it to me, and I was like, "Well, we should go back and listen to the video. Look at the Miss Continental video."
And
Um,
there were a few deviations of the name too. But I think the
Wonderful.
same goes for Shanae's name as well.
Well, it's a very unusual name. How did you pick that? Or were
Um,
you born with that name?
No, my real name is Noel. But I grew up as a dance teacher for young children, and I always had to kind of hide my social media presence from the kids just because you have to keep a very professional veneer with children. So I needed
Mhm.
something that was recognizable to friends and family, but different enough so that the kids weren't like searching for me and trying to find out what Noel was doing on Friday,
Oh.
Saturday nights, and things like that.
You know, we know about those Friday and Saturday nights. Now, I want to talk to you. Now, you're from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so originally I was born in Compton, California.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Spent my whole life here in South LA, and then I ended up moving to what they call it, the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area in about in 2015, I believe, to pursue a career in arts management. And eventually I stayed there for almost 10 years to I opened my own business and ran my own performing arts school. And I sold it this year, and I finally moved to LA, where I've been for almost 2 years now. Mm.
So how do you like Los Angeles?
Well, it's different. I was gone for almost a decade. So coming back was very refreshing because when I left, it wasn't a very POC friendly place for queer people. I think queer
Hmm.
people really struggle to find their place, especially in areas like West Hollywood, and downtown LA had not seen its insurgence in queer nightlife yet as well. So I didn't feel like I had a real place here in LA, so which made it easy to leave to the DMV. And then I realized I don't really have a place here either. So in between coming back and visiting family and becoming more integrated into Los Angeles, I realized, wow, this place has really changed. I feel like there's more inclusivity. I feel like the demographic is much broader, and I felt much happier. So I decided that I wanted to make the move back to Los Angeles, and pursue dance yet again because I had retired to fully run my own business. And I said I might as well do it now while I still have a little bit of vitality left in me.
But I always say the same thing. A lot of people are very shocked when I tell them that I'm in my prime, and I've been doing this for this year will be 36 years, and now we have the chance to do something a little bit bigger. And it's good for me in my golden years, I'll say. And it was very important for me to give something back to my community that has given so much to me over the years. I always dreamed of being in Miss Continental and being a part of the Continental system. I actually owned a prelim at one time, and there was a lot of controversy behind the prelim here in Canada because, of course, it was just what it was. So, but it taught me in the long run that our community, when we stick together, we can do almost anything. So maybe it was a good thing that I wasn't tied up with Continental because now I have something that is going to be, more beneficial to our community, I think, in a sense of us all.
Oh yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your journey to Mr. Continental. And then I want to talk a little bit about the controversies that I see online, a lot of the questions that are being asked about the Mr. competition. Now, how did you decide that you wanted to be Mr. Continental? Had you been there before?
I had not been there before. In fact, I guess I knew that it existed in my subconscious, but it was something so far removed from my life. I spent a lot of my days running my dance studio, teaching and choreographing, and pouring myself into other people and children and their dreams and their goals. And then I started to reach this midlife crisis, right? Where I said, wow, I've done a lot for others, and there's something in me, there's still a fire in me that feels like it needs to be exposed. I feel like I have a lot to offer. And at the same time, I was following a lot of drag queens, because I'm a drag race fan. And I'm also a fan of local drag queens. And I followed someone called Chantel Sparkles, whose
Mhm.
drag I really, really connect to because she's very much kind of a nerd into video games and cosplay. And that's what I do as well because I'm a big nerd. And that's all we had to do back in the early 90s, late 80s is play video games and play with toys. So that is
Mhm.
something that I carried throughout my everyday life and throughout my performances. But she won Entertainer of the Year, and she won in a way that I thought was unique because she presented a very edgy, fun, cool package that referenced sci-fi and horror. And I was like, those are some of my favorite things. I didn't know you could do pageantry or let alone drag with those elements and win. And so
Mhm.
I was like, let me see if there's something that they offer for male presenting people. And I contacted their current rating at the time, and he said, "Wow, you look like you have a lot of talent. I'd like to help you out." And we connected a little bit, and ultimately didn't end up connecting too well over what I wanted to present as a package. right? Which seems to be a common thread in pageantry, right? A lot of people like to tell you what to do, but I'm very committed to my art. And I said, well, if I want to do this my way, because the whole reason I want to perform is to be visible as me, as Noel. And so eventually I started looking and doing my research and due diligence into the world of pageantry. And I found Entertainer of the Year. Again, I'm sorry, Entertainer of the Year. I found Gay America. I found All American Gent, and I found the Continental. And I bought a bunch of DVDs, a bunch of online videos, YouTube, and I looked at what everyone was presenting, and I saw little pieces of me in almost every system and almost every contestant. And I thought, well, maybe I can do this. And I dove deep, and I really looked up that Continental just had such prestige and honor, and I'm a very overzealous person. And if when I do something, I like to be challenged, and I like to push myself, and I like to prove people wrong or prove people right, whatever their belief is in me. I found Continental at the same time. Fabian Neisha Lopez had just moved to LA. We connected, we became great friends. She talked to me a little bit about the system, and I said, okay, I want to do this.
Hmm. So you are you Espanol?
Yeah, I'm Latin, so I'm
Oh,
primarily
wonderful.
Mexican.
Okay. I mean, I can pick up on the accent. I mean, I'm from Orlando, even though I've lived in Canada 30, this will be 36 years this year. But I've lived here most of, well, half of, well, court,
Mhm.
part of my life. And, but I'm from Orlando, actually, Orlando, Florida. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And then they offered me a job here in Canada, and I came. So I've been here ever since. I plan on retiring back at home in Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to buy a house in Fort Lauderdale and sit down and rest my nerves when all this is over. But hopefully, the next 10 or 12 years, it'll be prosperous and wonderful for us all because we're headed in the right direction. Now, today, there's a few things becoming Mr. Continental. It sort of has that feeling of masculinity and the fact of talent and the fact of you have a lot of weight on your shoulder. I mean, because Miss Continental is really established with a lot of great past performers that have upheld the system to this day with great performances, great charity work. A lot of them have opened up little businesses and things like this here and contributed a lot back into their community. And and you, as Mr. Continental, I want to talk about a few of the controversies that seem to surround the Mr. Continental um, presentation, I might say. A lot of the online questions are we see a lot about they seem to think a lot the Mr. Continentals are feminine men. And when we think of a Mr. Continental, we would think of someone like yourself that is, you know, masculine presenting um, in general. Now, what do you say about that? I mean, there's a lot of talk about that. I'm sure you've heard it.
Mhm. Sure. Do you mind if I just take a small pause for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're back.
All right, no problem. You know, we can always edit, cut, tape. You know how it goes.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so even though I am current rating, I still see myself as a little bit of an outsider, because as you know, many people compete for over 10 years to win either Mr. or Miss. Usually it takes more than one try. So, and this was my first kind of entry into the pageant world. So I definitely still have a more of a bystander perspective, even though I've been invested for about a year now in pageantry. Yeah, Mr. Continental does from the outside looking in, if you were to compare many videos of different systems, it does appear that the Continental Mister does have to be more male presenting, right? And that is just based on the formers. If you were to just watch those and compare with other formers, um, but I strongly believe that's because of what you choose to present on stage and why you choose to present it. Um, I've recently been talking to a few gentlemen who I thought have a lot of talent and would encourage them to try the system themselves. And many things that come up are that they feel they're not male presenting enough, that they're too feminine. Um, but I want to encourage people to present themselves in their authentic self, um, and to be more visible as who you are. Don't emulate someone else. Be who is authentically you, so that other people may see that, oh, that's okay. I can be my authentic self. It can be somewhat feminine, whatever that means. Because these are all just social constructs. We are just ourselves. We just wear several hats. Um, Present who you are, and people will love you because you love you, you know. And then when we stop trying to emulate what we perceive as masculinity, then we really get to the bread and butter of who we are as humans, you know, regardless of our genitalia. Present you, and others will embrace you. And if the system is, you know, interpreted as just being a a sort of veneer of masculinity, it's only because that's the only majority presented to choose from. You know, if you present a bunch of burgers, you know, we're gonna choose a burger. You know what I mean? But choose display a variety of gender presentations, and now we have so much more to choose from, you know. So I do see that, you know, the formers do tend to have a similar aesthetic in terms of hyper male presenting in the queer world, you know, because I think we are all, you know, a bunch of queers out in the regular world. You can spot us, you know, very easily.
Mhm.
But as far as it comes to being feminine and masculine, we do tend to present a little bit more. And anyway, when it comes to getting on stage, right? Once we strip everything down, we are just pieces of flesh. You know, some of us have higher voices, some of us have more, you know, feminine quirks and characteristics. But I truly believe any sort of queer person, you know, can win the Mr. category if they're their authentic self and present a strong package. You know, the only thing that Continental requires is that you present those categories within the parameters, which are very simple. It's just cleanliness and fit of garments, cleanliness of talent, authentic answers that are short and sweet but easily digestible. They say nothing about hypermasculinity and how you should look or act. Those are all just internalized things, you know. That's why I love the saying, you too can be continental. It applies to everybody. Mr. Miss, and if you find yourself on the outskirts of a Mr. Miss, in between the Mr. Miss, matters not, you know, you too can be continental.
Mhm. Wonderful said. You have a passion for that, so I can see that there was a sincere answer from you because I'm sure you've heard this before, and the concerns that the community and a lot of people are talking about it online. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the the charity work of Mr. Continental. Now, as you know, in the US and Chicago, I mean, Chicago, especially Chicago and New York, there's a lot of refugees coming into the country. And a lot of those men are LGBT, you know, maybe LGBT or part of our community. And now, what do you think in general, not what Continental should do, but what should you do as a citizen and Mr. Continental to sort of reach out to the LGBT community of refugees or asylum seekers for to welcome them into the country, or how to help them with either food, housing, information. What do you think you should be doing?
Yeah, well, charity work has always been something that's been near and dear to me. I've been on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to financial prosperity, right? I'm a first generation child of two immigrants, who came here for a better life. And we had nothing, and we relied on others' kindness and my parents' hard work and our savviness to get by. And there have been many times when I've encountered financial prosperity, and I've always found ways to give back via my business, hosting food drives or donating toys to Child for Tots, or just donating profits to local charities in the DMV. And I understand, I'm very empathetic. So even though, we're very busy as human beings, trying to pay bills, trying to stay healthy, trying to connect with friends and family, it's very easy to get lost in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and not be connected to current events. Um, I luckily have this, as I say, it's almost an addiction to the news cycle, because I like to stay aware of what's happening. I like to stay aware of what's how it may affect me, my friends, my family, or just our everyday interactions with society. Um, and I unfortunately don't have a lot of um, I would say I don't have a lot of insight in terms of what's happening right now with the displaced migrants, right? That are coming here. Because I'm in LA, so the biggest thing here is homelessness, right? So all I can ever really do is right now at the moment is help in a micro way, right? Just if someone is selling something, purchase from them, give anybody that asks me for something, the little micro things, or extend kindness, give water bottles whenever I see someone. It's very small, but it's those small gestures that I think are relatable to everyone that sees them. To them, I think it helps them not lose hope in people, because I do see them sometimes mistreated, sometimes ignored, like they're not there. It's painful. So
Mhm.
it's something that I like to help in any way I can. When it comes to the larger scale problem, in terms of finding these people places to live, and making sure that they have the resources that they need. Oh my gosh, the only thing that I feel that we can do is continue to have a dialogue that people are aware, because I think the major problem is that people that we have is people are unaware, right? We're so caught up in life
Mhm.
and trying to stay alive ourselves that we're unaware of these things. So we have this dialogue. If we share something as easy as a post or a YouTube video or something like that, we just get the word out that these people are here, why they're here, and that they need our help, so that we do, when we do have these interactions, that we are sympathetic and empathetic, and that it doesn't stop there, but that we continue to think of ways where we can help. That way, when we see someone, whether they're having like an online campaign, or maybe there's something as simple as outside a grocery store, they're collecting funds, so that we have somewhere to connect that to. I've seen someone, I've read something about that. It feels easier to give to a campaign like that because we're familiar with it.
Mhm.
Just bringing light to it, really. It seems silly, but I mean, our generation is so disconnected from the news and media in general, because it can be so toxic and so overwhelming, that we
Mhm.
sometimes are not aware of all these things that are happening, that are affecting us, that are affecting people like us. And these are people
Mhm.
just like us. They're our queer brothers and sisters, so they need us.
Mhm. That was a great answer. Thank you very much, sir. Now we're going to lighten the mood a little bit. I didn't want to bog you down with too many politics, but she did make it very clear that we need to touch on these things, and because Miss Continental has such a big platform and it has such a big voice, and we need to address these things that affect, like you said, our community and our surrounding communities and our family and friends, and these are things we need to talk about and address. So, because information is key.
Mhm.
Now, let's talk about the fact that Jeanne and yourself are both newcomers in the system of Continental. This is something that's amazing. It really is. And for you to have one on your first time and for her to have one on her first time is something that's incredible. And I want to say congratulations to you. You did a fantastic job. We watched the video from beginning to end, and you deserve to win. I'm just going to say it like that. Um, and I just want to say you did a great job. Now, how did you feel when you won? Did you know you were going to win?
It's interesting because I feel I'm such a complex person, unfortunately. I wish I could dissect myself more easily.
Like me.
But as all queer people, right, we're amalgamation of a bunch of different affectations. But I felt like I deserved to win, not because I presented a better package, not because I think the system owed me anything, but because I felt like life prepared me for it. So I felt like I was deserving, I should say. Um,
Mhm.
but you just never know because as an outsider with very few people in the system or in any system really with very few connections, I didn't know. There's a lot of things that happen in the back end, allegedly. And then there's a lot of people who have been in the system for so long. So, as someone who's also an adjudicator for dance and gymnastics competitions, we're human and sometimes we feel a stronger connection to people that we've known for much longer. So, I had to be prepared for perhaps the fact that I may not be the favorite, as they say, because these are competitions and competitions have favorites. Like I said, we're human. But
Mhm.
I felt like I was just as deserving as the other gentleman there. But in a split second, right before they called my name, did feel like it was mine. It's this very strange feeling. I grew up as a competitive dancer and acrobat, so I have won many things and I've lost many things. So I'm familiar with both feelings. But in that moment, I felt like a surge of happy sad and then a surge of peace because it was so much stress in my life at that time and even currently had been um very stressful and full of irregularities, having moved to Los Angeles and sold my business. A lot of questions about where my life would go were swirling through my head, and in that moment everything kind of paused and I felt at ease and I felt like I had hit a goalpost in my life where I can finally exhale. So a lot of people, I saw a lot of comments be like, he's so calm. He doesn't even look happy. I was like, oh, when I'm happy, I am at ease. Like nothing makes me happier than not having a thought running through my head, quite frankly. Because I'm a thinker. So in that moment, I felt, it's over. Yes. It's just nice to turn off your brain, even if it is on stage on Continental.
Mhm. Well, it's wonderful to meet you, Mr. Continental Noels Ark, here today on the show. And we're talking to him a little bit about his journey to Continental and about a lot of the issues that affect our community. And I want to say, what is the most difficult now that you are Mr. Continental and you're getting to travel all over the world and meet interesting people and do interesting things and hopefully have a little fun along the way? Um, what is the most difficult thing that you find now that you are Mr. Continental and you have to do all these prelims and all these meet and greet and these press conferences? How does what's the most difficult thing you faced so far? What are you most afraid of now?
I think this stems from being, again, a child of an immigrant, a queer person. Um, oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to even articulate this because I feel silly. Even at my age, I'm afraid that people won't like me. They're just, there's a lot of weight on any title holder's shoulder, especially someone, who's of Latin descent, on the queer spectrum that's not quite gay, not quite heterosexual, in between and constantly moving in between as well. Um, I'm always afraid that people won't like me. And I'm also a little bit more alternative presenting. So I'm not the normal suit and tie wearing kind of person. I like tattoos and like piercings and like you know, horror, and I like video games. I'm still that kind of nerdy queer person. So I'm always afraid that I'm not going to be someone's cup of tea. And normally that doesn't bother me. But in the realm of Continental, you want to be liked and you want to be digestible because you want to be remembered by having a good reign, but you also want people to be inspired by you and want to join the system as well. So it's something that kind of weighs on my shoulder. I like to make sure that I am my authentic self, but I'm trying to be a little bit more uh, uh, I'm gonna say more, I'm not a watered down version of myself, but something that everyone can understand because I'm complex. And a lot of people sometimes don't connect with me or think that I'm stuck up or think that I'm quiet or have an ego, but I really just am a big nerd. And if I
Mhm.
seem that way, it's because you know, I'm shy. You know, that's the only
Mhm.
reason. So the hardest thing is really being able to be my authentic self while trying to connect with hundreds and dozens of strangers all at once. You know, Miss Continental final night was overwhelming for me because you're meeting all these people in the pageant world, so many people that you respect, and it's just like for someone who's kind of like an introvert, it's overwhelming. And I'm like I'm sweating. I'm like, who's that? Should I remember their name? Like, what do I do? You know, you know, I really had no resource. You know, my promoters were great. But you know, they're not holding your hand through all this. So a lot of it is like, you know, kind of, you know, digesting a whole world of people and a whole different realm of the queer community that I had only seen from the outside in, and now I'm plunged right in the thick of it. So,
Mhm.
but I'm
Oh,
learning to
Mr.
be more
Oh,
myself.
oh, you know, Mr. Continental demands attention, and that's the way it should be when you walk into a room. You are a symbol of excellence, and you did well, and you won the competition. So stand tall there, Mr. Continental, and walk into the room like you own it and you know everybody, because you never know who you're meeting. My agent, she always says that to me. I want you to start shaking these people's hands because you never know who's who in this room. You stop standing over here and get over there. And I've learned to sort of go around and say hello. And I mean, I'm an MC. I'm more of an MC on a comedian on the stage than I am just doing drag. I kind of do everything, but sometimes when I'm in a group, once I'm done off the stage, I'm sort of like, I don't want nobody talking to me. I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
But
it's very interesting to go from, you know, when you're a performer, you know, I grew up in the concert dance world. So you go and you perform, you get your applause, and then you go home and that's it. And so to do the opposite, right, as a queer performer in the pageant world, you perform, but then you're thrust into the audience and then you mingle and it's just a new world, right? Whereas now there's a whole different component of artistry and socialization that you have to combine and embrace, really. So I'm enjoying the process. Overwhelming, but enjoying the process.
wonderful. Now, I want to talk about just one more thing and then we'll wrap it up because you've done excellent here. She likes it so far. So she's smiling over there. And let's talk about, are you in a relationship?
Yeah, very interesting enough. I'm in a relationship with Alex Cardine, who was my first alternate. Um,
Mhm.
and it's my first relationship in almost 14 years. Um, and I met him via the Continental System. We went to a prelim together, Heart of America in Chicago.
Mhm.
And I went there shortly after winning my prelim on the advice of my promoters to integrate myself into the system, introduce
Mhm.
myself to Jimmy, and visit the baton whenever I had a chance. This prelim happened to be on a weekend where I was free. I visited. He was there too. We connected. We stayed in touch the whole time, and I learned about his journey throughout the continental system. He has a large, you know, pageant family as well, and was introduced to them too, and they all gave me advice on, you know, things as minor as how to navigate the system and how to put together a formal suit because I'm the kind of person that's always in a muscle shirt. And denim. That's my aesthetic. And so over the process and of the summer and getting closer to Continental, we confided in each other over our fears and our goals and our passion for performance and for the system, really. And we got just so close, and we competed together, which is unheard of, because I understand now that families, don't compete in the same system at the same time. It's a mutual respect, I suppose. Um, but we did this together, and I wouldn't have changed everything. We were a strong support system for one another. Especially, I think this was his 10th anniversary at Continental, and it was my first time. So we were able to kind of absorb each other's energy there. And shortly after the pageant was over, we made it official. And now we're a full-fledged couple.
Well, wonderful. That is amazing. In the last few years, I've interviewed quite a few Miss Continentals and Miss Continental Elites and different um, people within the system. And I found you very interesting, and you're quite talented. And when she was talking to me about you, she's a very detailed kind of a person. So she saw the passion in you that you probably don't see. But when you watch the video, you can see you have a real passion and charisma about what you do. So this is why you were chosen to be Mr. Continental, because for me, just watching you for the first time, I thought that you were fantastic. Nothing, not anything to take away from your lover, I mean, or your boyfriend or your partner, but from just watching you, you could see that dance passion, that thing that's in there that says, I love what I do. And this is a great thing. And Continental really embraces that because they are looking for talented and true performers that can help make the system strong. And I think that you did a fantastic job. And you should be very proud, both you and your partner, of your accomplishments. So I would say to Mr. Continental, stop hiding, start shaking all those hands, because that might open up a door for you that you might be happy that you did down the road. And I just want to say, in closing, what's your advice to other young men and oh, she wants me to ask you one more before we close. Let's t- we want to mention this because we think that it's relevant. As you know, a few years ago, Donald Trump owned the Miss Universe pageant, and there was a trans woman that entered the Miss Universe pageant. Do you think trans men should be allowed to enter Mr. Continental?
Yeah, I actually do. I feel like all that's being asked of Mr. Continental in terms of the package, like I mentioned earlier, is that you present those tenets of Continental, right? Which are simply the swimsuit, the formal, the talent, the Q&A and interview. And those tenets are interchangeable with any gender. Whether whether you choose to not identify with any gender, quite frankly. So I don't think there should be necessarily a separation. If you feel like you can present these tenets within the parameters and that are being asked of you, I feel like you definitely should, and the system is young, and in the grand scheme of national systems. This is the 20th anniversary for Mr. So I know there is room for growth there as well. And I don't think there's any, I'm still fresh to the system, but I don't think there's necessarily any pushback there. Again, what
Mhm.
I talked about earlier, I think what needs to happen more is just more of a dialogue, and educating the people in charge about why and the benefits of it as well. Because again, the more inclusivity, the better for our queer, universe. Really, it's so broad. I hate to even limit it to LGBTQIA plus. Plus, it seems like it's leaving some people out. So it just our queer family just needs to feel embraced on all ends. Really, no closed doors for anybody.
Okay. All right. And in closing, what's your advice to dancers and up and coming performers, like you said earlier, that might not fit the mold of the aesthetics of Continental, but yet they still want to enter and be part of the system, or they want to compete in the system, or just be a part of the Continental family.
My advice is caution to the wind. Enter. That's kind of how evolution happens, right? One cell enters and it spreads and it mutates and we adapt. And that's what happens with anything really. Enter, display who you are. You'll connect. Someone will see you and be like, oh, there's opportunity for me. They'll enter. And then more will see that, and then more will see that. And then the system, and every system really, any social unit, quite frankly, will adapt and it'll evolve and it will learn to be something different than what it was. And the only way that will happen is if you take initiative and step in and present you.
Wonderful. You know, I want to say, Mr. Clinton, you're very smart, and I enjoyed talking to you today. And she was smiling a lot during the whole interview. So obviously, you're doing very well with answering the tough questions that she wrote here, because she made it very clear. Because last season, she sort of said, you keep pussyfooting around, and I don't want you to do that. Get right to these questions, direct questions, and stop being scared. So I'm learning to be a little bit more direct now, and the shows are getting much better with me being more direct instead of trying to save face. And we getting the straight answers from our community that we need to hear and we need to understand. And like we said, information is very important. I want to just say congratulations to you, Noels Ark, Mr. Continental 2024. Today on the show, everyone, we had Mr. Continental on the show talking about his journey to Continental. And then we brought up a few issues about our community that we think are concerns for him as a citizen and a person living in Los Angeles and living within the gay community, and his journey to Mr. Continental, which is a very big part of our community, and they do great things for us as entertainers and gives us an avenue for opportunities beyond our wildest dreams. And like he said before, you never know who you're going to meet, so start shaking those hands there, Mr. Continental. And and I want to just say thank you so much today, Noel, for being on the show. You were fantastic, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I won't hold up any more of your day. And we will make sure that we get a copy of this out to you, and you can, do as you wish. And I just want to say to the Continental family, thank you guys so much. You have embraced the show so much. So many of you have been on the show, and so many of you are coming up on the show. And I want to just say thank you to Noels Ark, Mr. Continental, for not knowing me and giving me an opportunity to interview him, to share his story with our audience and the world. And I want to say thank you to the Continental family in general and our community. You guys are fantastic, and you're holding up really well through all of this stuff. So stay strong, stay positive, and just keep it moving. And together, we just keep connecting, sharing information, and helping each other out. We'll be okay. And congratulations again, Mr. Continental. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Stephanie. I look forward to talking again.
All right. Bye-bye. Fantastic. Fantastic. Fantastic, eh?